My life was a whirlwind of purpose. As a humanitarian speaker and consultant, my office was often a sterile conference room in Geneva one week, a dusty field clinic in rural Kenya the next, and then a bustling university auditorium in New York. My voice, amplified through microphones in dozens of languages, spoke of global health, sustainable development, and the transformative power of compassionate action. My work was my passion, fueled by a profound belief in justice and the common good. It also generated a substantial international income, meticulously managed by my husband, David, and our shared financial advisor. David, a charming, optimistic man, handled the domestic side of our lives, managing our meticulously crafted financial plan and overseeing our joint charity foundation, an extension of my humanitarian work. Our financial future seemed not just secure, but robust, designed to fund a lifetime of meaningful impact. I was mid-conference in Copenhagen, delivering a keynote on innovative funding models for disaster relief, when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar urgency. It was David. My heart gave a little flutter. Usually, he texted just to say good morning or to share a photo of our dog, Barkley. This time, the notification showed a long, multi-line message. I excused myself from the post-panel discussion, my mind already drifting to what important news David might have. Perhaps a major grant for the foundation? Or exciting news about the new house we were saving for? I tapped the message open, my thumb hovering over the screen, expecting some happy news. Instead, the words hit me like a physical blow. Lena, I can't do this anymore. This life. This distance. It's not working. I've filed for divorce. Papers will be served when you get back. Don't try to call. It's over. D. The world tilted. Copenhagen's hushed conference halls, the polite buzz of conversation, the faint scent of Danish pastries, all of it dissolved into a dizzying, disorienting void. David. Divorce. A text message. While I was touring the globe, building our career, our joint future, he was tearing it apart with a text, a cowardly, impersonal text that left me utterly bewildered and searingly angry. My fingers, numb and trembling, fumbled for the phone's call button. I tried his number. Straight to voicemail. Again. And again. The automated message repeated, a hollow mockery of a connection. I tried our home line. It rang unanswered. I tried his office line. Same. Panic, cold and sharp, began to creep in, replacing the initial shock. This wasn't like David. Not the man I had built a life with for 15 years. Not the man who usually hated confrontation. This was a complete abandonment, delivered from a safe distance, leaving me thousands of miles away with nothing but a few brutal words. Over the next 24 hours, my bewildered and angry calls home escalated into desperate attempts to reach anyone who knew David. His parents didn't pick up. Our mutual friends, when they finally answered, were evasive, clearly uncomfortable. Lena, I don't know what to say, one close friend stammered. David's been different lately. He's got some new business partner. Someone he's really excited about. A new business partner? What did that have to do with divorcing me via text? I cut my conference short, abandoning my remaining speaking engagements with hasty apologies. The urgency of my work, my global humanitarian mission, felt suddenly trivial in the face of this profound personal devastation. The flight back was an agonizing blur of unanswered calls and churning anxiety. Every minute brought me closer to the incomprehensible truth David was hiding. When I finally got home, the house was silent. Too silent. The locks had been changed. My key no longer worked. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was beyond a text message, this was a calculated, chilling act of exclusion. I tried the new keys David was supposed to have sent me, nothing. A note was taped to the door, papers filed. Our lawyers will be in touch. Don't attempt to contact me. All communication through legal counsel. This was a full-scale war, declared via text and locked doors. My anger flared, hot and bright, cutting through the confusion. This wasn't just a separation, it was a complete erasure. It took days to finally get David on the phone, coerced by our shared lawyer into a strained, supervised conversation. His voice, once warm and familiar, was now tinged with an unfamiliar defensiveness, an almost manic confidence that unsettled me deeply. "Lena," he said, not honey or babe, just Lena. "Look, I'm sorry it had to be like this. But things have changed. I've changed. I've met someone, a new business partner. Her name is Serena. She's brilliant. And she's shown me a path to financial freedom, to real prosperity, that our old life simply couldn't offer." Financial freedom? Our substantial international income, our meticulous financial plan, our healthy investments, what more freedom did he need? "What are you talking about, David? What new partner? What path? You filed for divorce without a word. You changed the locks on our home." My voice rose, unable to contain the incredulity. "Serena has developed a proprietary algorithm," he continued, completely ignoring my outburst, his voice almost hypnotic. "It's revolutionary, Lena. Exponential returns. We're talking about transforming our assets, making them work for us in a way you wouldn't believe. She's handling everything. It's all automated. We're going to be wealthier than we ever dreamed. And it's going to allow me to live the life I truly want, without the constraints." Constraints? Was my humanitarian work a constraint? My global travel? "David, stop. This sounds like a scam. What have you done with our money?" My blood ran cold. The exponential returns, the proprietary algorithm, the evasiveness, all the red flags were waving frantically. His confidence wavered slightly. "It's not a scam, Lena. She's shown me the projections. The proof. We've moved all our assets, our joint accounts, the foundation's liquid funds, it's all invested with Serena. It's all going to come back, multiplied. We're going to be set for life." Horror dawned, chilling and absolute. Not just his money. My money. Our joint assets. The foundation's funds. He was blinded by a con artist's promises, tearing our entire financial future apart. And she was using our money, my money, to fund her lavish new lifestyle. I ended the call. My mind raced, frantically piecing together the fragments, the sudden, out-of-character divorce, the locked house, the bizarre talk of exponential returns, the confident, then panicked explanations about this new business partner. The devastating truth settled over me like a shroud. David, sweet, naive David, had fallen for a sophisticated con artist. And she was draining everything we had. My work, which had always been about preventing suffering, now reflected back at me a profound, personal disaster. I, the world-renowned humanitarian speaker, had been financially sabotaged by my own husband, blinded by a con artist's promises. The devastation of this hidden deceit was only just beginning to unravel, but one thing was clear: I wouldn't just stand by and watch everything I had built, everything I believed in, be stolen. The fight for integrity and justice, it seemed, had just become intensely personal. And I had a global network and a keen intellect to bring to bear on this investigation. The phone call with David had confirmed my worst fears. My meticulous financial plan, years of painstaking saving and prudent investment, had been utterly obliterated, not by a market crash, but by the insidious promises of a con artist. The exponential returns he spoke of now echoed like a death knell for our future. A cold, hard knot of dread formed in my stomach, a counterpoint to the burning anger that still simmered. My first frantic calls were not to David, but to our financial advisor, a man named Mr. Henderson, who had managed our portfolio for years. His voice, usually calm and reassuring, was tight with distress. "Lena, I've been trying to reach you. Your husband," he initiated a series of very aggressive transfers. Against my advice, I must add. He seemed entirely convinced by some new partner and her proprietary algorithm. Said it was an exclusive, high-yield opportunity. "What transfers, Mr. Henderson?" To whom? How much? My voice was barely a whisper. Almost everything, Lena. All liquid assets from your personal accounts, the joint investment portfolio, even substantial withdrawals from the foundation's operating fund. He had the authority, legally, as a co-signer, to move the funds. I tried to warn him, Lena, I really did. But he was unshakable. Hypnotized, almost. He said it was all being transferred to an offshore holding company tied to Serena's investment group. The words hit me like a series of sharp blows. All of it. Everything. My humanitarian work, my substantial income, the meticulously crafted financial plan that provided the basis for our life and the foundation's impactful work, all gone, funneled into the pockets of a phantom company by a man blinded by greed and delusion. My personal account, which held the funds for my immediate travel and living expenses, was also empty. Every penny I had diligently earned, every reserve for future projects, every cent allocated for our future, evaporated into the digital ether. Within hours, I confirmed the scale of the devastation. Our primary checking and savings accounts, drained. Our investment portfolios, liquidated and transferred. The substantial funds in the Joint Charity Foundation's operational account, gone. Even the emergency savings account David kept for our personal use, the one I barely knew about, was zeroed out. The con artist, Serena, had acted with terrifying speed and efficiency, leaving us utterly destitute. Not a cent remained. They had left nothing but a phantom trail of wire transfers leading to a labyrinth of offshore accounts and shell corporations, designed to obfuscate and disappear. And Serena herself? She had vanished. Her supposed business website, defunct. Her contact numbers, disconnected. Her social media profiles, deleted. Even her physical address, which David had once vaguely referred to as a temporary office suite in a prestigious building, turned out to be a rented mailbox. She was a ghost, leaving behind only an empty financial void and David's heartbroken, self-inflicted ruin. The immediate shock gave way to a cold, precise determination. I might have been reeling from the betrayal, but my mind, trained to navigate complex international crises, immediately shifted into problem-solving mode. Step 1, understand the enemy. Step 2, initiate the pursuit. My first call was not to David, his betrayal was too fresh, too painful, but to a trusted, high-level contact within Interpol, a brilliant investigator named Inspector Anya Sharma, whom I had met during a conference on combating financial crimes in vulnerable populations. She understood the nuances of international fraud and the devastating impact it had beyond just the numbers. Anya, it's Lena. I need your help. My husband, he's been conned. And he's taken all my assets, our joint savings, even funds from the foundation, and given them to her. She's vanished. I suspect a major international fraud. Anya listened, her voice calm but serious. Lena, I'm so sorry to hear this. This sounds like a classic affinity fraud, but with a devastating personal dimension. You'll need to file a formal police report immediately in your local jurisdiction. That's always the starting point for any major investigation. Gather every piece of documentation you have, bank statements, transfer receipts, any communications from this Serena, details of the offshore accounts, anything David mentioned. I immediately contacted our local police department. Reporting the fraud felt surreal. Sitting across from a detective, detailing how my husband had unwittingly given away our life savings to a con artist, felt like a scene from a poorly written drama. Detective Ramirez, a seasoned but weary officer, listened patiently, his expression neutral. Dr. Khan, I understand this is difficult, he said, after I laid out the bare facts, trying to keep my voice steady. But your husband voluntarily transferred the funds. This complicates things. It's not a direct theft, not in the traditional sense. It's a consensual transfer based on false pretenses. It's fraud, detective, I insisted, my voice firm. He was conned. Duped. And the funds are gone. Vanished into offshore accounts. This is sophisticated, possibly international. He nodded, taking notes. We'll open a case. We'll need statements from your husband, too. And every bank record. But if the funds are offshore, this quickly becomes an international case, requiring cooperation with federal agencies like the FBI and potentially international bodies like Interpol. That takes time. A lot of time. His words confirmed what Anya had implied: the immediate battle would be bureaucratic. The wheels of justice turned slowly, especially when tracing digital footprints across borders. I knew the complexities of international finance and illicit flows better than most. I understood the challenges. But understanding didn't alleviate the urgency, the visceral need to recover what was stolen and to hold this con artist accountable. While the police began their preliminary inquiries, I hired a private investigator specializing in financial fraud and asset tracing, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Sarah Vance. Sarah moved with a quiet efficiency that mirrored my own. We need to move fast, Sarah told me. Offshore shell companies can liquidate and vanish just as quickly as they appear. We'll look for any digital breadcrumbs, any real-world connections, any patterns that match other known fraud operations. I began to gather the documents, compiling the extensive paper trail of our dismantled financial life. Every statement, every email from David about Serena, every hazy detail he had provided about her algorithm and investment group. I even looked into the text messages and David's online activity for any clues, any strange new contacts. The painful truth of David's infatuation with Serena began to emerge, not just as a business partnership, but as a full-blown, all-consuming obsession. The emotional betrayal was intertwined with the financial ruin. The devastation was complete, the betrayal absolute. My global humanitarian work now had a new, unforeseen dimension, the fight for my own integrity and justice against a ghost who had stolen everything. But this was where my global network, my keen intellect honed by years of navigating complex crises, would truly prove its worth. This was just the beginning of the hunt. The initial police report, filed with Detective Ramirez, was just the first domino. My conversations with Inspector Anya Sharma at Interpol bore fruit almost immediately. Anya, seeing the intricate patterns of a high-level, cross-border fraud, expedited the process. Soon, what had begun as a personal tragedy became a full-blown international investigation, drawing in federal agencies like the FBI and specialized financial crimes units across multiple jurisdictions. Dr. Khan, your insights are proving invaluable, Detective Ramirez admitted during one of our increasingly frequent video calls, his voice conveying a newfound respect. He was a good man, methodical, but initially skeptical of the international scale. The details you provided about offshore finance, the way you connect the dots between disparate data points, it's helping us piece together Serena's MO. My life became a whirlwind of virtual meetings with agents from New York, London, Zurich, and even the Cayman Islands. I meticulously sifted through the fragments of information David had given me about Serena, a fleeting mention of a business trip to Singapore, an offhand comment about a partner based in Dubai, a seemingly insignificant detail about a financial tech conference in Tallinn. My humanitarian work had given me a global Rolodex of contacts, from government officials to local activists, and I leveraged every single one. I reached out to colleagues who had worked on anti-money laundering initiatives, asking them to run Serena's name, her shell companies, through their discrete networks. I connected my contacts in international banking with the FBI's Financial Intelligence Unit, guiding them through the complex digital trails Serena had left behind. It was painstaking work. Each piece of information, no matter how small, had to be verified, cross-referenced with the fragments being collected by law enforcement agencies on different continents. We uncovered a web of fabricated identities, expertly crafted corporate documents, and sophisticated money laundering techniques designed to obscure the ultimate destination of the funds. Serena was a professional, a ghost in the machine, leaving behind only echoes. During this relentless pursuit, David was a phantom in my peripheral vision. Our lawyers handled the divorce proceedings, which were mercifully swift but brutally impersonal. The assets were zero. There was nothing to fight over, only loss. I received updates from friends and his family, sporadic at first, then increasingly grim. His initial delusion, the arrogant confidence about his financial freedom, quickly shattered when the reality of his complete destitution hit him. Serena had not only drained our assets, but also his separate, smaller savings and any personal investments he had. He had believed her entirely, surrendered everything, and been left with nothing. "He's not doing well, Lena," his mother confessed during a tearful phone call. "He barely leaves the house. He's lost weight. He doesn't talk much, except to say he can't believe he was so stupid." The social isolation followed swiftly. Friends who had previously dismissed my concerns as marital strife now saw the devastating consequences. The lavish lifestyle David had projected, the expensive gifts and exclusive trips he'd bragged about, likely funded by early, small returns from Serena, designed to build confidence, all evaporated. He became an object of pity, then, for some, a figure of quiet contempt. People knew he had handed over my income, my life's work, to a con artist. The fact that it was money destined for a humanitarian foundation only deepened the community's judgment. My heart ached for him, despite the profound anger that still simmered. The man I had loved, built a life with, was a hollowed-out shell. His naive optimism had been his undoing, exploited by a predator who saw his weakness and his desperation for a shortcut to immense wealth. He wasn't just financially ruined, he was socially ostracized, consumed by shame and self-loathing. He refused my attempts to reach out, cutting himself off, likely unable to face me or the enormity of his folly. He was left completely destitute, alone in a house that was now legally mine again, but financially worthless. As the investigation progressed, the depth of Serena's network, and David's unwitting role within it, became terrifyingly clear. She hadn't just taken our money. She had used our meticulously planned charitable foundation as a veneer of legitimacy, setting up dummy accounts within it to launder other illicit funds. David, blinded by his infatuation and the promise of unimaginable wealth, had signed documents, authorized transactions, and unknowingly became an accomplice to her larger criminal enterprise. "We're looking at potential charges for him," Dr. Khan, Detective Ramirez stated, his voice regretful. Unwitting accomplice or not, he facilitated a large-scale fraud. "It's a complicated situation, but the prosecution will likely argue gross negligence, if not worse, given the sums involved." The thought of David facing criminal charges, of his life being utterly dismantled, brought a wave of profound sadness. He was a victim, yes, but also responsible for the catastrophe. His lust for exponential financial returns had blinded him, making him a puppet in Serena's elaborate scheme. It was a harsh, unforgiving lesson. My focus, however, remained on Serena. David's ruin was a tragic, self-inflicted consequence. But Serena was the true architect of this devastation, the master manipulator who had preyed on trust and ambition. The international collaboration of detectives and police agencies, aided by my relentless research and global connections, was beginning to close in. The digital breadcrumbs were no longer just fragments, they were forming a discernible path. The global hunt was narrowing. The pursuit of Serena became an obsession, not of vengeance, but of justice. Every piece of data uncovered by Sarah Vance, every lead developed by Detective Ramirez, every international connection I provided to Inspector Sharma, felt like another step towards dismantling the intricate web of deceit. The global network I had cultivated for humanitarian aid now served a different, yet equally vital, purpose: tracking a predator. We discovered Serena's real name was Anya Petrova, a woman with a history of similar, albeit smaller, scams across Eastern Europe and Asia. She was a chameleon, expertly crafting new identities and corporate fronts. But her methods, sophisticated as they were, left patterns. Her addiction to high-end luxury goods, the specific routes her laundered money took through various offshore tax havens, the digital signatures she used to mask her communications, all became clues. The breakthrough came months later, through a combination of painstaking financial forensics and a lucky break. A small, seemingly insignificant, transaction linked one of her shell companies to a boutique art gallery in Monaco. Not the art itself, but the gallery owner, who, it turned out, had unknowingly facilitated one of Petrova's earlier, less ambitious frauds. Inspector Sharma's team, with the aid of Monegasque police, set a trap. Petrova, confident in her anonymity, tried to retrieve some funds she had stashed in an untraceable account, thinking the trail was cold. She was arrested as she stepped out of a private bank, still clutching a designer handbag. The news hit me like a physical release. It wasn't joy, not exactly. It was a profound sense of relief, the cutting of a cord that had tied me to the trauma. The con artist, Anya Petrova, was finally in custody. The trial was a blur of legal jargon, cold facts, and damning evidence. Petrova was a master manipulator, but the combined testimony from the police, the financial experts, and witnesses from her past cons was overwhelming. She was convicted of multiple counts of grand larceny, financial fraud, and money laundering. The sentence was substantial, a lengthy term of imprisonment that ensured she would no longer prey on unsuspecting victims. Justice, in this cold, hard sense, was served. As for David, the consequences of his folly were dire. The legal authorities determined that while he was a dupe, his gross negligence and the sheer scale of the funds he allowed to be funneled through the charity foundation amounted to complicity. He was charged as an unwitting accomplice to the fraud. The trial, though separate from Petrova's, was equally devastating for him. His social isolation was complete, his reputation utterly ruined. He was left with nothing, his future now defined by shame and the looming possibility of prison time. His descent was painful to witness, a stark reminder of the corrosive power of greed and misplaced trust. I saw him once in court, a gaunt, haunted man. There was no malice in my gaze, only a deep, abiding sadness for the life that had been lost, for the man he once was. My own journey of rebuilding was long, but deeply restorative. Financially, the recovery was partial. Much of the money, especially the funds funneled offshore, was simply gone, absorbed into Petrova's complex web. But I refused to let it define me. My intellectual capital, my global network, and my unwavering commitment to humanitarian work were assets no con artist could steal. I secured new speaking engagements, focusing on the critical importance of due diligence and ethical governance in nonprofit organizations. I consulted for NGOs on financial security measures, transforming my painful experience into a powerful cautionary tale. The income, while not matching my previous substantial earnings, was steady, allowing me to rebuild my financial security, piece by painstaking piece. I established new, robust financial safeguards, ensuring that such a betrayal could never happen again. My humanitarian work continued, stronger and more focused than ever. The incident had not diminished my faith in humanity, but it had sharpened my understanding of its darker corners. I learned to trust my instincts, not just in recognizing potential threats, but in discerning true character. My resilience, forged in the crucible of betrayal, became a new wellspring of strength. The divorce was finalized quietly, legally separating my life from David's wreckage. The text message that had shattered my world was now a distant, bitter memory. It had been a catalyst, a forced redirection. I had survived a profound betrayal, a devastating financial sabotage, and the public humiliation of a criminal investigation tied to my name. My husband had torn our financial future apart with a text, blinded by a con artist's promises. Detectives and police investigations had peeled back layers of deceit, leading to arrest and imprisonment. I responded calmly, understood. When she realized what I had done, not just aiding the international investigation, but meticulously rebuilding my life, untainted by her fraud, and continuing my humanitarian work with renewed purpose, it was already too late. She was imprisoned. David was ruined. And I, though hurt, had found a deeper wisdom, a stronger resolve, and an unwavering commitment to justice. The experience had tested my integrity, but in the end, it had proven it unbreakable.